Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Let's get into it. We got a special guest. I'll let him introduce himself right now. I'm super excited about why he's on and how I got connected with him. So, Wally, the floor is yours. Go ahead and give the listeners a brief background, professional bio, so to speak, when you served, whether you got out after four, retired, whatever have you, and what you're doing now.
Thanks, Gunny. Happy to be here. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I was active duty in early 80s, 81 to 85. Went to MCRD San Diego. 3 days after graduating from high school, I went to high school in South Texas. After boot camp, went to Naval Air Station in Meridian, Mississippi to aviation supply school and finished like, top three in the class. And they asked me if I wanted to stay and go to computer school. And I said, yeah, what's a computer? I've never seen one, right? Not even, this is 1981, right? No computers anywhere. I'm like, sure. So I stayed, and long story short, I became a 3073 computer system operator and got sent to the air wing. So I did 4 years between Iwakuni, Japan, and Tustin, California. And in 1985, I was hoping to reenlist, but given my 4 years or 3.5 years with IT in the Corps, I knew I could triple my salary if I got out. I think I was making like 15 grand a year or something, as a corporal. So with no reenlistment bonus for my MOS, I got out, and I've been working in IT ever since. The Corps, gave me my livelihood. Yeah, I spent like 25 years in the financial industry working for a Swiss company running IT there. I did that from like the early 90s all the way to like 2017. And now I'm an engineering director for Volvo Cars in Mahwah, New Jersey.
Wow,
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means, but that sounds high. That's
Yeah, it's a great company, great brand, good culture. Now I live in Connecticut now, and I go to the New Jersey office a couple times a week. It's not a bad commute, but I've been in Connecticut since 1993. Yeah, so that's the short story.
so. How was if you can recall? I know that was a while back. I'm not aging you or anything like that. I was just born in '88, but so your transition from Marine Corps uniform to civilian, how was it for you? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember having any challenges. I mean, my first job after I got out of the Marines was I was working for Ford Aerospace in Southern California, helping to build the Sergeant York tank. Right. So I was pretty at home because although it wasn't military, it was, right?
Yeah.
There was like an assembly line, putting a tank together. So I felt pretty at home. A lot of veterans were there. So that for my transition, that was fairly easy. I think I was fortunate to be able to have that job. It was just for a short time, but I think it made all the difference in transitioning.
That's good. I'll tell you what, you do I'm a weaver. I like to weave things back in. We go back and forth. So don't mind me if
Yeah.
I go back and forth from different topics. But so your transition obviously was smooth. That's good because some of the service members I talk to across the board, they miss a lot of things. And they say a lot of things about their transition and whether or not it was proactive or, the negative, so to speak. Do you miss anything from the active duty service?
Hell yeah, I miss a lot. I, I've been so involved though. For 25 years, I was the webmaster for the USMC Combat Helicopter Association, papasmoke.com, for 25 years. So I was very involved with all the veterans and reunions. And so, like they say, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? And that's been my case. I never really left it. I mean, obviously, besides wearing the camis every day, but I think, for transition, what most people probably miss the most is that camaraderie, right? So, belonging to this great gaggle of Vietnam veterans, I think that that afforded me the camaraderie big time. And also, the lack of purpose, right? When you're in the Marine Corps, you have a purpose. And so I found my purpose with that group too. Again, I was with them for a quarter century, right? That was a long time. There's like loss of identity to the uniform, right? That's another thing is when you're wearing that uniform every day, you know who you are, right? There's a purpose, there's respect, there's a hierarchy. And when you get out of the Marines and you try to, join the civilian world, you have difficulty because you miss that structure. For me, I think I was a bit fortunate that the various things that I got involved with, I maintained a lot of what you leave, if you understand that.
I understand. I've never been through it. I probably will be here in a couple of years, but not
Yeah.
anytime soon. So, what got you doing the blog? Tell us about the blog or the website. Or
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, in 1990, I think around 1994, and when you could first register a domain name, I registered a domain, and one of the things that I never had from my time in the Marine Corps was my platoon graduation book or photo. I just never got that for whatever reason. And I said, there's got to be somebody else I went to boot camp with online somewhere. So I created a website in 1995 called the Marine Guest Book. It's kind of like what I just restarted on my blog. If you noticed it, I think you signed it actually. You put in your boot camp info. I'm recreating what I did back in 95. And at the time, I swear to you, I think I was one of like 5 to 10 Marine Corps websites at the time. It was like pioneer shit. I mean, there was nobody else online. So I created that and I had thousands of Marines putting in their boot camp information online. And I had a chat called Marine Chat. I eventually registered the domain name thefew.com. I had that for several years, but then I gave that to military.com at some point. I just handed it over to them because for whatever reason. Anyways, I have had my blog in some form or another for since 1995, so for 30 years. Right? The one that you see today, it used to be called txdevildog.com for like 10 years. And then it was, yeah. And then I think about 4 or 5 months ago, I just re-engaged, I refreshed, and I registered the domain, the Suck Life, and I rebranded it. And I had at one point, like on my Twitter, like 35,000 followers back in the day, but I ended up giving that Twitter account to my son for another project. So I had to start all over on Twitter, which, I'm building up again. But yeah, it's been around for a long time. And I've always tried to share, in an empathetic way, sharing, valuable or informational content to my brothers and sister Marines out there. And stories, information, and also trying to like educate civilians about the Marine Corps, which is what the theme of my blog is, the sucklife.com. The theme is, it's like the digital squad bay of Marine Corps culture, as I think is what I called it. And I try to write articles that give insight into what it's like being in the Marine Corps Brotherhood. And that's, yeah, that's what it is. But I've been doing it for 30 years.
Jesus, and you don't get paid for this on the side hustle or what?
No, I played around with ads or whatever, and it's so annoying to me. I completely removed ads from my blog. It's clean. I just like people to experience the content and not the bullshit.
It's good, Wally. I'll tell you what, I do like the name. I caught my eye when I first got a hold of it. The Suck Life. I'm like,
Yeah.
nobody. That's good. It's really good because it is. It's if you haven't experienced it, it's basically what it is. It's the Suck Life. But then you realize there is when you look back at it, it's like actually it was pretty fun because I got to experience it with my boys. with the homies. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's a different world. I don't think the culture of the Marine Corps could ever be unraveled, so to speak, if that makes sense. People
Yeah.
want to understand, or people want to what's it, digest it, or not digest it, but kind of break it down to where it's easily into to the body, to the mind. But you'll never know unless you experience firsthand.
Well, Gunny, like what I wrote on my blog, and I'll read it here. It says, the suck is a term every Marine knows well. It's the tough days, the grueling moments, the situations that push you to your limits and then some. But more than just enduring, Marines learn to embrace the suck as a badge of honor, a testament to resilience, grit, and camaraderie. I think that sums it up. I mean, the Marines, we don't have it the best of all the services, that's for sure. And a lot of the shit that Marines have to do, it sucks. We end up just saying, it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. Fuck, I wouldn't trade it for anything, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. How did the Corps boost, not boost, but probably a bad word, but how did it set you up for success? Obviously, you said that it gave you your livelihood, which is a big deal, right? Because obviously you're providing for your family. I saw the little ring. I saw the ring on the finger. So I'm assuming you're married, got kids. You said you had kids. So how did I know that the livelihood? But what are some of the intangibles that it provided you?
Well, I would say it's mostly around the soft skills, Gunny, right? As you read like leadership books from like the Navy SEALs or Recon Marines or whatever, they talk about character and competence, right? I mean, competence is you have to know your shit. You have to know what your job is. You have to do a good job. You have to be competent at what you do. But the other half of it is character, right? You have to be somebody that knows how to play nice with others, that other people like to be around. And so I think what I got out of the Marine Corps, right out of high school, I think is the character side of it, the discipline, the responsibility, the empathy, all the soft skills that you learn about how to get along with different cultures and different attitudes, and all the different characters that you end up even from boot camp, right? You're a platoon of misfits, and you have to learn how to respect and trust each other. And when you do that for 4 years, it really builds something in somebody. So I think I've often said, when somebody has asked me a similar question, like, why the Marines, what'd you get out of the Marine Corps? I think it's discipline and responsibility are the two I would say, right?
That's good. That's actually it's same here. I agree with you. I'm still in now, but
Yeah.
responsibility, discipline. I wasn't young, undisciplined thing yet. For those that don't know, that's what it is. It's you learn the hard way, and really
Yeah.
quickly, because either abide by the organization and the left and rights, or they boot you out, kick you out, because the hierarchy has to be maintained. Good order and discipline has to be maintained. So while you hit it right, the nail on the head. I tell you what, you've been out for a little bit now, right? And some
Yeah.
some would say we should probably let it go. Why do you disagree with that statement?
Let what go?
Yeah,
Not even in my vocabulary. What? Let it go.
let it. It's how do you say? I've talked to some veterans and talked to some retirees, and it's just kind of like it's just it was time for me to hang up the hat, and I don't want to pull that suit out of the closet, so to speak.
Yeah, I get it. And I've known some people that I served with too that turn it off. There's no USMC decal on their car. They don't wear the T-shirt that says "Raw." They don't do any of that shit, and they're like, that was a different time in my life, and that's cool. Whatever, that's your business, man. But to me, I put that in like the 10%er category. I mean, I don't see how they can live like that without just letting the Marine Corps go, because shit, it's who I am. I mean, I'm almost 62 years old, man, but I'm more of a Marine today than I was when I was, on the parade deck, MCRD. I'm telling you, man, it's like it's in you forever. I mean,
Yeah,
if you want to let it go, if you can do that, I don't know. That's not me, man.
that's crazy. Well, you look great for 60. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Grandkids? You got grandkids yet or no?
Yeah, I got grandkids in California. My oldest grandson is like 15.
Oh,
And my daughter, one of my daughters is any hour now is going to have her fourth. So I have six kids and four girls and two boys. Last a couple weeks ago, I sent you an email with some chat topics for this, and I don't know if you caught it, but I had a son that passed away from fentanyl, right? And
I did.
I thought that was like something. It's a, I like to talk about it whenever I have the opportunity, because my son Jake, he was 25 years old. He just turned 25, and college grad, hard worker, good kid, and he wasn't a drug user, right? Somebody that he knows gave him a Xanax pill, and it had fentanyl in it. He didn't know, right? So it killed him, right? He took it and never woke up. And we tried to raise awareness that one pill can kill, and like so many kids, especially like college kids, military, they just popping pills left and right. They don't know what the source is, and thousands of young Americans are dying every day. I mean, not every day, but hundreds, like literally dying every day from fentanyl, and you're hearing about it more and more. But this was about 4 years ago when my son died. And so talk to your friends, your buddies, your kids, your aunts, uncles. We'll talk to everybody about, hey man, if it's not prescribed by a doctor, don't take it. But anyway, I have another son here that lives at home. He's 27. And then I have another daughter who's a junior at University of Delaware, another daughter who's 31, I think, and living in the West Village in Manhattan, and another daughter who's in Portland, Oregon. Yeah,
Wow,
I have,
all over the place. Huh?
yeah, and I'm always trying to instill this responsibility and discipline in my kids, and in so many direct and indirect ways. Always trying to give them a lesson, and I fully believe in leadership by example. Like, I don't tell my kids or make them do much of anything. I just do things, like, I just have the initiative and I just do things that I want them to do, hoping that they observe and they see my behavior and that they emulate that somehow. So leadership by example. And when you're a Marine Corps and you go to a OCS school in Quantico, above the door there, they have what? Do you know what it is? They have a sign
Huh.
there. It says Ductus Exemplo. That means leadership by example, right? This is like a phrase that the officers use, and that's been my kind of like my motto for decades. Ductus exemplo, leadership by examples. That plays not only in the workplace but also with kids, and anybody else, family, friends.
Yeah.
Leadership by examples. That's always also a good takeaway from the Marine Corps, I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's great. I didn't want to touch on certain things. 'Cause I didn't know if it'll be appropriate, but as you say, it's appropriate for you because it's you. It's you. It's who Wally is. I tell you what. Hi, what's That's another one that you can start off on. One pill can kill. That's a good one. You can trademark that bad boy right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
It's
it
very
is. I
catchy.
mean, not that it's trademarked, but it's a hashtag out there. You see it on marketing campaigns. You see it on I'm involved with the DEA, and I've been to their headquarters in Virginia, and I've done presentations with the DEA, and they have one pill can kill plastered all over the place. My son's also on the wall of the DEA headquarters. They have the Faces of Fentanyl wall, and there's like pictures of, thousands of youngsters that have died from fentanyl. My son's on their wall over there. I was pretty I was in touch with the head of the DEA, and now that Trump's in, Ann is out, and there's a new DEA person in there. But I try to keep tabs of the DEA's fight against fentanyl. It's a lot to do with the Chinese and the Mexican cartels and bringing this shit over the borders and planes. It's an epidemic, is what it is. And these guys, I think there's a statistic that says like a 7 out of 10 pills you buy on the street have some level of fentanyl in it. It's crazy. It's crazy. People, I think the biggest way to combat it is just it's education because you can't fight the cartels. You know, there's not enough money and resources, manpower to fight those drug lords. They're going to be making this shit and they're going to be selling it everywhere. But all we can do is try to educate
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What's some lessons learned from that? I know it was it's one time occurrence, but what's some lessons learned there
from,
from your son and the fentanyl and what you're doing now?
well, that's a great question because as a parent, when you lose a kid, there's no words for it. And you constantly replaying, in your head what could have been done differently, what mistakes were made, whatever. But, I don't see that in my case, I could have done anything differently. I mean, we talked about drugs with all the kids. We afforded our kids so much, put them all through college. So, I mean, in hindsight, lessons learned. I mean, really, I don't think there were any blind spots there. Like nothing that we said, my wife and I said, if only, if we would have done this or we could have done that, things just didn't come up. So lessons learned, it's really just paying attention to those that are out there trying to educate and saying and not saying, yeah, that'll never happen to me or my family, right? Because it can.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember actually to touch on that. Not that I've experienced it, and I do feel for you and your family. So prayers go out there because I know every day is a struggle. I know that just have a buddy of mine, last year as of January, committed suicide. Two different things, but I know what that decision does and that choice that he made had a huge ripple in the water, so to speak, of what his family's
Oh,
going through now. And I can't
yeah.
imagine, the one time you use thing, I'm like, man, damn, trying to figure out what could I have done better. And those things kind of mess with you every single day. At least I would hope that it didn't, and you had some good some outlets. But people with that kind of experience, they struggle. It's never in the middle, right? It's either left or right of what they're dealing with, and it takes a lot of time for them to get back to the middle, if that makes sense. In terms of mine,
Yeah.
what can you touch on that piece? Touch on that piece a little
I mean,
bit for you and your family.
it does. And I'm sorry about your buddy, Gunny.
Or
I think one of the best pieces of advice that I received early on when, like in the weeks following my son's death, one of the best things that I heard was, don't linger too much in the past. Don't go, thinking too much about what might have been in the future. Just try to focus on the here and now to get through the day, right? And once I started practicing that, it was so helpful, and I think the same method would be helpful for anybody struggling, whether it's alcohol, PTSD, drugs, stress at the workplace, whatever it is. Like if you just think about what's happening right here, right now, right? Let's focus on that. I'm not going to tomorrow, and I'm not going to yesterday. I think that's some good piece of advice that I got, and it really does help.
it's good. I'll tell you what, I agree with you. Tomorrow's not promised, and yesterday's gone. We can only work on what we got going on today, and I just hope that we're better today than we were yesterday, and hopefully
Yeah, amen.
we're blessed enough to be here tomorrow. So I'll tell you what, I'm, I could be your son. I have a daughter that's 17, so we're probably right around that age. If you want to adopt one,
Hey. There you go.
there you go.
I'm up. Let's go.
I'm up. They see me. I'm down. There you go, Wally. That's it.
I like it.
So how are I always gotta ask a couple questions here. You touched on a little bit on some of the things that can help you with in terms of mental fortitude, mental health. I think a lot of service members are struggling with suicide for some reason,
Yeah.
and I am a big proponent on spiritual health. Right, it's mind, body, soul kind of thing,
Yeah.
and I say that we're almost desensitizing young individuals, whether it be in service or not, about suicide. It's almost like it's branded out there as an option, even though they might not see it that way. It's almost like the shock and awe of suicide is not shock and awe anymore. I want to be able to provide some insight there. You talked about take it for now, take it for the day and now. What about those service members that say it's not about the day now? It's what happened yesterday that I'm struggling with, that I can't move past.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm probably, I'm not definitely not the subject matter expert there. I mean, suicide's like a whole different monster, or
Experts, some experts. The experts aren't even experts at this point anymore. It's all about life experience and what helped you can help somebody else.
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think you said, it's like the impact of the stigma, right? There's so much stigma attached to it in the media. Would you say desensitization, right? I think the media is like the more they cover suicides, the more normal it becomes. So I think that's the perceived gravity of the issue is just normal because it's just happening so much. I mean, over time it can create a sense of inevitability, right? Like, yeah, it's nothing we can do about it, especially for those struggling that are struggling silently about it, and they feel like their pain is just part of life in the service, but that's not true. I mean, I think for individuals, let's talk about the service members that are struggling, with this PTSD stuff. I think the most important thing for service members to do, and I'm there's causation with my experiences, and parents that are struggling as well and healing. And I think the best thing to do is to speak up, right? Not suffer in silence. I mean, reaching out to these service members might feel impossible because of the way when you're in the service, especially in the Marine Corps, you have this expectation that's weakness if you speak out and say, I need help, right? But talk to a trusted NCO or leader or friend, professional. You have to, that I think that's the key. You have to break the silence, man. Break the isolation. Stay connected with your shop, your community, your team or whatever. And sometimes it feels like impossible or hard to do that, but you have to focus on, again, like the here and the now. Like, what's a manageable goal? If I'm thinking about what I'm doing today, that's manageable, right? If I'm thinking about life the next year, that's not manageable, man. You have to, it's like going for a short walk. I can do a short walk. I'm not going to do a marathon, or you can talk to somebody for 5 minutes to, like, build momentum. But I think just, chunking it out, breaking it up, and just focus on that 5 minute talk, that walk, that what can I do right now is
Uh-huh.
maybe something that might help.
It's good. It's good, Wally. I'll tell you what, the here and now. It's very, you hit it again. You hit a nail on the head. You here and now. You got to focus on the here and now. What can we do as individuals to make right now better? Or how do we get better now? That's good.
Yeah, I mean, the key
It's
is
baby step at a time.
you can't face it. You can't face it alone, man. And that's what these troops are doing. They're keeping it inside. They're trying to do it alone. They don't want to show weakness, and that's bullshit. That's what's causing all these suicides. Is they don't know how to open up, how to talk, how to trust, how to be vulnerable. And I mean, these are young Marines, man. They're just their environments. The things that they learn boot camp on drill instructors. You don't just open up and say, I'm suffering and I need help. That's the hardest thing for anybody to do, especially if you're a young Marine.
Yeah, that's good. Steve, I think it's culturally based. I talked to service members from that time, from like the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, compared to
Yeah.
now. It's a different group of individuals. Obviously, there's a lot of different things going on in the time, right? But it's definitely a different mindset, so to speak. They were talking about PTSD. I was like, I never suffered PTSD. I go, huh, interesting. Is that just a now thing? Is that something that we're pushing now? It is interesting to look the different dynamics of the cultures of the ages and see that, you know, the generally speaking, some of them are not dealing with that trash. Others are not dealing, and others are.
Especially the Vietnam veterans. I mean, and I knew hundreds of them, right? You know that a lot of them had suffered PTSD. Uh, I mean, a majority of them. That these guys were flying in helicopters and hot LZs and saw a lot of combat, a lot of action, a lot of death, and a lot of them have PTSD. But this is it's kind of like the World War II guys, right? They just don't talk about it. The greatest generation type mentality. The Vietnam vets are proud but they're silent, man. They just keep it all inside, and that's what these Marines today are trying to do, the same thing. But now there's so much more that we know about mental illness and mental health. And I think there's a lot more help that's available. We just have to get these troops to open up. And that comes with the leadership. NCO leadership needs to have training on what that means and how to do that. Because staff NCOs, like, they don't really necessarily know how to take care of the troops that are suffering, how to observe it, how to see that there's something happening without being told. I mean, there's like a whole lot of education that could happen there too. And it goes same for the workplace, whether you're in active duty military or if you're in the workplace. Employees, I've been managing employees for a long time, and they also, maybe not PTSD, but they have mental health issues. And you have to learn how to recognize that, and how to be a counselor, and how to bring them down, how to get them to open up and say, how does that make you feel? And what can I do to help you? And would it help if we did this together? And, stuff like that. And you have to, it's an art to get people to open up. But man, when you do, man, it's just amazing when you observe how somebody suffering can open up and just break down and start healing. It's so rewarding. And
Yeah,
I think more of the military staff need to learn how to do that for the younger troops.
that's good. I agree with you there. We're what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Have to be in a community with people for us to flourish in a specific way. And I think in order for us to flourish in a specific way, we have to know how each other and inside and out and what we feel and how we're going through. We have to be transparent. I do agree with you there. That's something that we have to learn as service members, period, because I think it's across the board. I'll tell you what,
That's
on a
the
lighter
biggest
note, though,
obstacle.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's the
sure.
biggest obstacle. Yeah.
On a lighter note, Wally, boot camp, 80 81s. Do you remember your drill instructors?
Hell yeah.
No, you
Staff
don't.
Sergeant
Name
Island
one.
was my senior DI. Staff Sergeant Island, Staff Sergeant Freimeyer, and Staff Sergeant Mayorga. Three staff NCOs.
Uh,
I'll never forget those.
do you remember your recruiter?
Sergeant Critchfield. I just talked to him last week.
Really? What?
Last week. Can you believe that shit?
That's crazy.
Last week. Last week I was just chatting with him on Facebook. He was my recruiter, man. Uh, yeah, 1981. It's funny because I was in high school and I was in my pickup truck with two of my buddies in South Texas, and they said, "Hey, we're going to join the Marines." They told me. I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Join the Marines? Are you high? Where'd that come from?" They're like, "Oh, we met this recruiter at the mall and he got us all excited about it." I'm like, "You guys are nuts." Well, long story short, I joined and the two of them didn't. I went to the Marines and I met this guy, this sergeant, and he was so freaking cool, man. He did his job. He really did his job. But I would go after school and just hang out at the mall with him. I thought I was, big shit because I was hanging out in the recruiter's office next to a Marine.
That's funny. I was trying to touch on the point where drill instructors are more impactful than recruiters, but failed there tremendously.
And by the way, while I joined do they still have the delayed entry program?
They do, they do.
They do. So I signed up for the delayed entry program, and I had a few months before I graduated high school. And during that time, I got the legendary call from the Gunny at the recruiting office, and he said, "The Marine Corps has a job for you." Because I told him I'd go in open contract, use me wherever you need me, right? And he said, "It's aviation, supply, support, and anti-air warfare." And he looked me straight in the eye and he goes, "Trust me, you want this job." I'm like, "Okay, Gunny, no problem, right?" Like a smart poolie. I said, "Sure, Gunny, okay, whatever that means." And so boot camp officially began on June 3rd, 1981, when I stood on the yellow footprints. And just 3 days after graduating, and little did I know that that decision would launch me into cutting edge of military technology, right? So I went to aviation supply school in Meridian, Mississippi, which is my first. I wouldn't even call it the fleet, but it was my first duty station on a naval air station.
What's your favorite boot camp story?
Oh, God. Well, I would say, I mean, there's so many, Gunny, but I would say one of the ones I like to tell was we were on the rifle range and I was in the butts, right? We were doing targets, and one of the staff sergeant Freimeyer comes by and he goes, "Smoke 'em if you got 'em." So I was a smoker, and they every now and then they'd let us have a cigarette in boot camp. So he's like, "Smoke 'em if you got 'em." And so I was like, "Fuck yeah, man!" I got my cigarette out and I'm lit. I'm like in the butts, right? The rifle range, smoking a cigarette. Well, he leaves, and here comes Staff Sergeant Mayorga, who's like a tough Puerto Rican with tattoos all over the place, which was rare back then. And he got right in my face. "What are you doing smoking my butts?" Blah, blah. And I was like, "Sir, Staff Sergeant Freimeyer said we could smoke, sir." "Bullshit." And he took me inside the target shed, and he got me up against the wall, and his massive hand was inside my gut, pinned me against the wall, and I knew he was Satan. He was screaming everything he could think of. And then Staff Sergeant Freimeyer comes in and joins him. And he says, "I never said you could smoke." And they were like, teaming up on me. And I was like, "I'm going to break you. I want you out of my Marine Corps." That was like just me and those two guys, man, was like in that target shed was like disaster.
There's some definitely some fond memories. I think you might have been in the fog of war. You don't remember what was happening, so the story is a little skewed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm glad that there's some good times coming out of it. Go ahead, Wally. I gotta ask a couple more questions if time permits.
Yeah.
I know your time's precious.
Yeah.
I'm always
Well,
late.
good.
Where's some if somebody can reach you at and they want to learn more about the Suck or Wally Beddoe just in general, where can they reach you at?
I would say on Twitter, or X as they call it now, just at the Suck Life, or thesucklife.com, my website. I think there's like an About Me page that has the contact info. I don't know if my email's on there, but it's admin@thesucklife.com is my email. But I'm always happy to engage, listen to different stories, help educate, motivate, be creative with content, throw some humor in there. But yeah, I'm very open to anybody reaching out for whatever reason. Maybe they have some ideas, want to share some thoughts on social media or web pages, or they need help with something. Yeah, I'm all in.
Absolutely. Wally, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk Pulling Pits and Opinions with your hosts, Gunny G and Wally Beddoe at the Suck Life, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Wally, though, we are out today. I'll see you later. I'll talk to you later. I'm going to message you later, okay?
All right, Semper Fi, Gunny.
Yeah, rah, to the death. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Stand by, contact. Ceasefire. Stand by, contact. Ceasefire.
Pit Talk is a podcast featuring active service members who discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.